is it hard to really retain those core tenets of the culture as you scale?
So you have to be really careful about attaching business process or norms or traditions and saying that's the culture. Our culture, again, is about our people and our values, and that's what stays the same. And the rest, as they say, is just business.
Is there like a secret sauce that maybe we can take off in terms of how Southwest does that?
I think the secret sauce is relationships. I think there is just people make really meaningful connections with each other at Southwest, and that's how the work gets done. And so when you have those connections and those relationships, and the word I use a lot is friendship. I think having friendship at work just gives you that camaraderie and gives you that connection where people really care about you in a way that makes work meaningful.
Welcome to One MOAR Take. This is Mohith Mohan. I'm the CEO of MOAR Advisory. We bring these conversations talking to leaders who have grown, scaled, diverse organization. And today actually is a special episode because today we have someone who's been with an organization for over 2 decades and a special organization which has really been at the forefront of a people-centric approach. I'm really glad to have Lindsey Lang here, who's the VP of People. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Glad to have you here. I don't think I'm going to do justice to get you talking on this. And I must say, before I start, this is the first time I'm actually doing this in ethnic wear.
I love it. This is my first time in a sari,
so
a lot of firsts.
Yes. But before we get started, we'd love to, maybe if you can introduce yourself just for the audience on what you do at Southwest, please.
Yeah. Well, Lindsey Lang, Vice President of People, and I've been at Southwest for 25 years, which feels a bit surreal. But in that time, I've had just the honor of working in our people department, which is what we call our HR department, the entire time. So grew up, started in talent acquisition, led our HR business partner team, and now as the Vice President, am leading diverse teams from total rewards to HR business partners to employee relations and our workday shop. So lots of diversity, but that keeps it interesting. And it's just been an amazing ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
25 years. That is something.
Yeah.
That's special. And if I could maybe just tee it off with that question, what's kept you going for these years? Because like you said, you've played a multitude of roles, different roles from talent acquisition, talent management. Today you're leading diverse teams. What keeps you going? What gives you that sense of purpose to keep going?
Yeah, I think that the thing about Southwest is that there is a very mission orientation. And really what we're trying to do as a company is give people the freedom to fly. And so that kind of mission orientation makes your work feel meaningful. And there's a connection to it. And so I serve people, I serve our employees so they can serve our customers. And so just being in that service mindset and getting to take care of folks has just been a really cool part of my career and why it makes it easy to go to work every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it's interesting because culture cannot just be listed on the walls. I think it has to be experienced, and that talks volumes, I think, of even what I've seen of Southwest, not just here in the office in Hyderabad, but when I was there at the headquarters. I think that truly talks about it. And I do think it's something that's deliberate, it's intentional. I'm just curious, how has Southwest been able to maintain that over the last 50 odd years?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all rooted in our values and we all understand what those are, right? We talk about me, we, and Southwest and how we show up as individuals at work, how we work as a team, and how we help Southwest win and do well. And so when you're rooted in those values and you're hiring for that and you're teaching that, the culture becomes just this organic thing that grows over time. And so when you're hiring folks that are rooted in those values and want to live those out every day, then that just starts to take hold, and our employees take ownership in that. And so the culture continues to grow and kind of manifest even, through ups and downs of business. The airline industry is pretty volatile. We have ups and downs and are, all kinds of fun adventures. But I think the culture really just lives within the people. And so that's always been at the center of Southwest is our people. And that's how it stays evergreen. Yeah.
That's amazing. And when you were talking about your own experiences, I've seen that consistently with people I've spoken to, is that they have long tenures with the organization. And I'm just curious, what are some of those elements you did talk about, but why people stay, how they grow within the organization. Is there like a secret sauce that maybe we can take off in terms of how Southwest does that?
I think the secret sauce is relationships. I think there is just people make really meaningful connections with each other at Southwest, and that's how the work gets done. And so when you have those connections and those relationships, and the word I use a lot is friendship. I think having friendship at work just gives you that camaraderie and gives you that connection where people really care about you. And so that makes wanting to come to work easy. And then I think we all care about each other. And it is palpable in the halls, as you say, when you come to headquarters or you're in a Southwest office, even here in Hyderabad, I think you feel that difference. And I think it's a warmth and it's a hospitality that people just carry with them naturally. And so that connects people in a way that makes work meaningful.
Wow. Yeah. No. That's really powerful. And Lindsey, we are sitting here today in the newest office of Southwest in Hyderabad. And it's interesting because this is 7,000 miles away, this office, and you can still feel that in the walls. But I'm just curious, as the organization scales and grows, how do you maintain that? If I would say that fundamental culture or DNA of the organization. What are some things that's unique about Southwest when you're kind of looking at an office that's so far away from the headquarters?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to what's at our center, which is the employee and our people. And so when you start with that, and we say the heart of Southwest Airlines is our people, and so that's people are universal. So the people of India and the people of Dallas, Texas, and if we're all human and we make those connections, then that culture naturally starts. And so despite the fact that yes, we are sitting 7,000 miles away, hiring people that care about others and want to have that kind of servant's heart mentality, we talk a lot about that. That's universal. People care about each other. Yeah. And so when you hire that, it just naturally shows up in the office. And we've seen that today. Yeah. We've got 9 employees so far, and you just see them already bonding. And some of that's through shared experience. And that's really cool to see that take hold.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that. And I do think, while we do that, it's also about, if I would say, the commitment and intentional sponsorship that's there. And also, I'm just curious the role of the leaders and the people, if I would say, people business partners through this. I think they play a critical role. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, how do you envisage for the role of the leaders on the ground here, playing that role in terms of taking that vision of Southwest forward?
Yeah, I think, when you think about what we expect of our leaders at Southwest, we say, take care of our people and take care of Southwest. And so just that notion of taking care of employees, that's it. It's that simple. But we do expect our leaders to do that. And I think when a leader makes an intentional connection with an employee, cares about more than just the work, also wants to know about their family and what's going on outside of work, that's the leader's responsibility to then engage them and make them feel like a family member. And that's really, I think, what starts to build that culture and that camaraderie with folks is our leaders demonstrating. Really, it's what Colleen Barrett started all of this on, which was servant leadership. And so when you think about it in that manner and taking care of your employees, it just happens.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And talking about that, I do remember when I was at the Southwest headquarters. Actually, I was flying in. to the Southwest headquarters, and it was on a Southwest flight
Yes.
from Charlotte to Nashville, and then Nashville to Dallas, Love Field Airport. And I think the experience that I had was something really memorable. I'll cherish it all my life. From the airline crew to actually getting into the corporate office, I think it was truly, I think, what I experienced of the Southwest culture. But if I have to take that to slightly a different, if I would say, plane, Lindsay, is it hard when you've been with this organization 25 years?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was different, both in terms of scale. I think the revenue has grown threefold from the time you have been with the organization. Is it hard to really retain those core tenets of the culture as you scale? I think that's a fundamental problem I think leaders and HR face across organizations. So I'm just curious how you've kind of been able to do that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I think a watch out is getting too attached to things that you want to say are part of the culture. And so you have to be really careful about attaching business process or norms or traditions and saying that's the culture. Our culture, again, is about our people and our values, and that's what stays the same. And so this year we made a total change to our business model. We had open seating on our aircraft, and now it's assigned seating. And somebody could have said, hey, that's part of our culture. No, that's part of our business, and that has to evolve to meet our customer need. And so same within our HR and our people teams. If we hold on to certain things, then we're not evolving and transforming really at the speed. I mean, business is moving so fast these days. You have to be able to be nimble and agile. But if at the foundation of that are your values, how you treat each other, those things don't change. Those things can always be the same. And I think that's being careful to not attach too many things to the culture. At its simplest, it's our people and it's their heart. And we show that through warmth and hospitality and authenticity. And the rest, as they say, is just business.
Yeah. That's interesting. When you spoke about assigned seating, I'm just thinking, the next big change could actually be Southwest flying to India, right? So that's going to be exciting to have a direct flight maybe to Hyderabad
we'll see.
someday.
We'll see. I'll let network planning know. We'll see.
So on that note, Lindsay, just to switch gears a little bit,
Sure.
I'm in conversations now with business leaders, people leaders, and one thing consistent is about organizations wanting to digitize their HR function in different aspects of whether it's talent acquisition, talent management. There's aspects of the people function that today organizations are making huge investments in digitization. And one of the things I kind of sit back and wonder is that actually taking away the human element? And is that actually going to make those conversations, those water cooler conversations, suddenly transactional when you do that? So I'm just curious, as organizations embrace technology, which is the right thing to do, how do you still keep to what you call the relationship, the people at the core? How do you balance that too, especially considering you lead a large part of that workforce today, and that and you have that charter as part of managing Workday, as you mentioned. So I'm just curious, how do you kind of look through that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually am hopeful that it gives us more time for relationship and meaningful connections. And so to me, digitization is about ease in the employee experience. And if you think about our workforce at Southwest, 80% of our employees don't sit at a desk. They're in the air, they're flying in an airplane, that's their office, or they're at an airport helping a customer. And so when you think of some of those, maybe I'll call them the foundational HR needs, if those can be digitized in a way that are easy to access during a busy day when you're traveling and out and about, then when you really do need that connection, when you're needing to speak to an HR business partner or something like that, those business processes have faded away into that digital world, and now there's time to have that meaningful connection and have a real conversation, and a digital process can't change or fix that. And so my hope is that really that's how HR starts to evolve, is that we actually are spending more time with our customers, we say customer, but our employees, to make sure that their needs are met so that they can then go meet the needs of our customers. So I'm hopeful it doesn't make it too sterile.
Yeah. It almost brings me to this analogy that I experienced when I was sitting in that flight simulator at the headquarters. We have all the tools and technologies to help, in this case, help me take off the plane and land the plane, but then there's still the human judgment that comes, which is so important. And I could so relate to the role of the pilot sitting in the cockpit and that's such a critical job. If you have to draw that to if I would say the people function, are there certain aspects of the people function you feel, the human judgment, you spoke about the digitization of processes, that would never go away from your perspective, that's extremely critical to where human judgment is going to be very important?
Yeah, I think the words that come to mind are critical thinking and creativity. And so, yes, there's the digital, modernization can help us solve things, but you need somebody to put thoughtfulness into that and understand how that employee is going to use whatever you're building or how the HR team is going to use that. And so I think for HR professionals, if we can be creative problem solvers, then no matter what that transformation is or how much digitization is introduced into the system, there's a need and a role for that. We're here to solve business problems. And so to me, it's just that next click of making HR a strategic partner versus being that administrative function. And so I think we've evolved really along that path well. I see it in my HR business partner practice, just the strategy of sitting at the table with the business and helping them solve problems. That has to stay. And so to me, creativity and problem solving, and then you'll have great tools and using those to help further that.
Absolutely. And talking about tools, I think today every conversation, at least I seem to go into, there's conversations about AI and in a good way. And I think one thing which what I also seem to take away from some of those conversations is, would aspects about org design look different? Would aspects about how leaders manage their team and upscale be different as we move forward? And it's interesting, almost every large enterprise today, their top 2 skills that they're hiring for are AI and data. All right. So I'm just curious, in that era that we are living in today, as we're thinking about skills and things are evolving rapidly, it's not decades, it's like we're talking about months now. I'm just curious, how do you see the role of the people function or HR embracing that to support the business?
Yeah, I think I'll use an example in our TA world where it's almost as if we've made AI a team member in the recruitment process. And so when you start to think about org design and thinking about those things, using the tools in that, they're part of the team almost. And so when you think about it in that way, that they are helping give our recruitment team lift to, again, spend more time with candidates and do those kind of things. But when you start to design the work in a manner that incorporates it, almost as another helper, another aid in getting the work done, I think that's where our role comes into play, is how do we redesign work and think of AI as that support and that bolster to the employees doing the work.
That's very, very interesting the way you put it, like almost like an assistant or a helper who's actually going to help every single employee kind of being more functional, productive. That's very interesting. And just maybe doubling down a little bit on that, Lindsey, the people function. I've been at a time, and I was earlier on, it was seen as really an enablement function and a support function to today's day and age, where the people function or the people business partner specifically, you wouldn't find business leaders going into a business meeting without their people business partner. So very much a part of the strategy in that. So as tools, technology is evolving, are there specific skills you think for the HR function that they need to kind of now pick up as we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that their adoption of the tools and to show that they've already incorporated AI and things into their day-to-day can only help them go sit at the table with a business customer to say, here's how it helps my work, and let's talk about it in the way that it might help yours. And I also think, in moving from that transactional HR to that strategic HR, folks have to understand the business they support. And I think building that business acumen and then being able to translate that into, well, here's how we can use AI to help further you, will be a necessity. It's almost as if you think about all the tools in your tool belt as an HR professional. That's what that HR business partner does. They're the quarterback, and sometimes they call L&D, and sometimes they call TA, and at some point they're going to call an agent, an AI agent, and say, hey, I need help with something. And so to me, it's another tool in their toolkit to support the business.
That's very interesting. And just maybe if I have to extrapolate that a little bit more, do you see future leaders in the type of skills that were relevant today may not be tomorrow? Mm-hmm. So just in that context, just like we spoke about the HR function, do you see future leaders actually having to pick up newer skills in terms of how they're going to lead teams and manage teams?
Yeah, I absolutely. And in some respects, I'm not sure we even know what those skills particularly are, but at the kind of core of them, I think it's agility, resiliency, problem solving, critical thinking. And so if you have the ability to adapt and learn, I think those are the skills of the future. Whatever the discrete skill is, be that knowing AI or knowing a certain tool, is needed. But I think because things are evolving so rapidly, people can learn on the fly now. And I think being open to that and having that growth mindset is what's required of any business leader today. Holding on to past behaviors, I don't think will make you successful. You will be lapped, if you will, by other leaders. And then, for us, you also carry that with also caring for people, and that can't change.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm just curious, Lindsey, do you ever see AI or tools that actually is going to enable the critical aspects of the DNA of Southwest? And what I mean by that is from a cultural aspect. Do you see that actually being an enabler, or do you feel some of the critical aspects of the culture is best experienced by people?
Yeah. I think I would just go back to, I think AI creates space for that, but I think that for us, that human connection and our employees representing our brand, when you think of the business we do, it is taking care of customers, flying on an airplane and traveling. And so while these AI tools can enable that human connection of showing hospitality and making our passengers feel welcome, cared for, and appreciated, that can't be done by AI. So that will always stay center to who we are as a company.
That's powerful. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsey. So, we actually come to the last segment of this show, and I always reserve the last because because I think this is the best part of the show, which is when I'm going to put you on the spot. This is the rapid fire round.
Lightning round.
I'm going to shoot questions to you, quick answers, one line preferably. So if you let me know, are you ready? Can I go ahead and shoot?
Let's roll.
Okay, great. So one thing you never miss, no matter how busy the work gets.
One thing I never miss is a walk. I love being outdoors and just movement and walking. It's just a peaceful way to think about the day and move on.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. How do you start your day?
I start my day with coffee, but I start early. I'm an early starter and get to the office early. Just see what my day shapes up, get some emails done. But I'm an early bird and in the office early.
That's great. I know that part of you, and
yes.
And
we've had many early morning calls on my side. Yeah.
Yes. And I start my day early too, and my coffee is my morning starter too. So so we have that in common. So a leader you genuinely aspire to be like.
Yeah. Working at Southwest, I've had so many great examples. I was reminded earlier today that Colleen Barrett was the first female president of an airline. And it reminded me that I've grown up with so many amazing Southwest leaders. But even 25 years ago, there were females on the executive team. And so I think about being able to grow up with that. It's hard to place just one, but the common thread they all had was that they cared deeply for the people of Southwest Airlines. And that was shown in their actions. And so I aspire for people to see that in me, and that they know that I'm there to preserve the culture and take care of our employees.
And I know, one thing for sure, I think there's a lot of people who look up to you as an inspirational leader, Lindsey. So,
Thank you.
So, quickly pivoting to a book you find yourself recommending to people around you.
Lately, I've been recommending The Correspondent. It's a fiction book about a woman in her later years, but she was a prolific letter writer, and the art of letter writing and corresponding in that way. It just was a beautifully written story, and we write a lot of notes to our employees. I handwrite a lot of notes because leaders would send me a note, and it means a lot to get a handwritten note from the CEO. And so I've tried to pass that on. But The Correspondent.
That's nice. Handwritten. I mean, I absolutely, and I can relate to that. And I've got those notes from you too, Lindsey. I think it definitely means a lot. I think in a digitized world, I mean, this is again,
that's right.
It just feels like
AI
real.
can't take my handwriting right.
Okay, a weekend spent well. What does that look like for you?
A weekend spent well is disconnecting from work and spending time with my family, my parents, being outdoors, taking walks. I think that when I disconnect, I show up better during the week, and that was learned over time. But that's a weekend spent well.
Great. And this one, I know, I've met several of your team members, and you have a great team, I must say.
Yes, an amazing team.
A day with your team, what makes it a great one?
I love hanging out with my team in a conference room on a whiteboard solving a problem. And we did that a couple Fridays ago. It was a bit of a heavy topic, but we were all in the room together solving it. And it just reminded me of just back to that connection and that teamwork. Like it was a great day in the sense that we were all there for the same mission, to solve a problem. And that was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Okay, here's the last one. The one trait you believe is universal in every great leader you've worked with.
Yeah, I would say authenticity, being their authentic self and leading in that manner. Because I think when you see a leader not being who they really are as a person outside of the work world, that just puts a barrier that folks can't connect with. So authenticity.
That's a really good one. Thank you. Lindsey, we come to the end of the show, but I will say, like I started by saying, this is a special one because we spoke about something that's, in many ways intangible, which is culture.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anyone better to talk about it, which is you representing Southwest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time and educating me and the audience.